Morning. Welcome to Senate Commerce Committee. When I said that we were finished with committee meetings for the session, it's not April, but obviously just kidding. Here we are again. Appreciate you all coming this morning and so early at 8 o'clock. The first order of business is we do need to approve the committee minutes for the dates listed in your agenda, and I know Connie sent those out ahead of time, so do we have a motion on the minutes? Can we have a motion by Senator Dietrich, seconded by Senator Ware? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Approved, no. Motion carries. Committee, today we are here for a hearing on Senate Bill 38, increasing the maximum compensation benefit payable to an employer for permanent total disability suffered by an injured employee. We will start with a briefing from our reviser, Kyle.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. Under current law, the maximum workers' compensation benefit that is payable by an employer to an employee for permanent total disability is $155,000. Senate Bill 38 would increase the amount to $350,000. The bill would take effect upon its publication in the Kansas Register. With that, I'd be happy to take any preliminary questions.
Questions for Kyle? Senator Ware.
Thanks. Do you know how long it's been? Hadn't it been a pretty good length of time before since we've looked at this and that's the point of the bill?
I would just need to double check and get a date back to you.
Any other questions? Senator Schallenberger.
Permanent total disability. I'm permanently disabled forever. That's what that is, right?
I believe there are a bit more nuances to that specific term of art. I'd be happy to give you more detail, and I'm sure that our following conferees can get into those details as well.
I can talk to them. Thank you.
Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a question for research. Can we see what other states have as far as compensation for total permanent disability?
Eric.
No, I didn't need to know it now, Madam Chair. I just want sheets and data before me. So at some point when we actually work the bill, and that, I want to know what other states are doing. Thank you.
Eric, if you'll take care of that. Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Dahl.
Kind of forgot me there for a minute. You're doing a lot of filling. How long has it been since we've changed it's 155,000, right? When was the last time we changed it? When was the last time we bumped that up?
I'll be happy to look at the statute's history and circle back to you.
Thank you.
Senator, I believe that Charles has an answer for that.
Senator, the last time the amount was increased was in 2011. It was increased from 125,000 to 155,000 at that time.
Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this is all except for that one change, current statute, correct?
Correct.
I'm struggling with number 2 for temporary total disability, including any prior permanent total. The wording permanent total looks like to me then it wouldn't include any temporary total. And you may or may not want to get into that because it's current language, and I realize we're just looking at changing the dollar amount, but I don't follow this language at all.
Kyle, do you have a response, or Charles?
I don't have an immediate response, but that could be an interesting topic to get into at the conferees.
I'm sure there's some, Madam Chairman, reason that the wording is as it is, but prior permanent total looks like to me permanent is not going to quit total. And then we talk about temporary total. and it's a different dollar amount. But anyway, we'll worry about that another time. But I do have a question, and this may be something that one of the conferees address. If we had an inflation factor from the last time it was increased, which we were told was 2011, I don't think it would be 350,000. Is that anything that staff has looked at to run the totals if we had an inflationary or CPIU from the 155 in 2011 to where it would be in 2023?
Charles?
No, we have not looked at that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
And we can have that available as well as Senator Holland's request. Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to comment on the good senator from Havana, 155 is ridiculously low to begin with, whether we have the inflationary piece to it or not. I see where you're going with that, and I totally respect that, but I think we might be low to begin with. So I just want to throw that out there just to have fun.
Senator Holland.
Yeah, just as a follow-up for prior comments made on number 2 there, maybe the reviser can clarify. I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb here and I'm assuming that somebody who would be accurate to say that there are certain situations where you could have somebody who is totally permanently disabled, but they could still find a work accommodation where they could in fact go back to work and then in the process get injured again. Is that an appropriate scenario? Is that not appropriate?
Charles?
Senator, yeah, just in general, I think the way the workers' comp benefits are set up, the employer gets credit for any prior benefits that have been paid out. So, that's why I think there's an inclusion of any prior permanent total, permanent partial, or temporary partial. So
that's what I want to confirm. Thank you so much.
Seeing no other questions, we will move on to proponent testimony. Proponents, we are giving 3 minutes per person in order to get everyone's testimony in by 9 o'clock. And we do have your written testimony, so I ask that you please don't read your testimony. We have that before us, but just summarize the important parts that you want to really emphasize in your testimony. With that, we'll start with John Nave, Executive Vice President, Kansas AFL-CIO. Welcome, John.
Good morning, Chairman. And I want to thank you and then the committee for giving us this hearing. We just hope to continue to give information to all of you to look at changing this bill for the better for all working Kansans. SB 38 does address the issue about workers and the injuries that they take. Some are so severely that they can't work again, and so we want to change this bill to give them that quality of life for their remaining lives, or until the age of 65, where other benefits tend to kick in. Clearly, 150, as senators have said, 155,000 is clearly not enough to help sustain a person's quality of life, especially if they had a very good job. We've heard in past testimonies where a worker was making $80,000 and was severely injured at work, and now it really decimated her quality of life for her, but also for her family. The states that border around us have a lifetime benefit. Missouri, Iowa. The only state that has like a 15-year cap, I believe, is Oklahoma. And also in the states, there's a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. It may be even more, but workers, working families, whether they're union or non-union, work hard. They give right back into the economy, okay? And they build themselves, hopefully, to work and retire at a good age. And then something happens, and it doesn't matter whether you work in an industrial side or a manufacturing side. We have to make sure that we take care of those workers. That's all of us. We've heard of the personal, hardships. And then, so ending here, I want to say this. We have to look at helping our workers all across the state to have that dignity of life and make sure that they can retire with some dignity while they're in the ability that they've put them, but that was put before them, not on no fault of their own. And I'll stop right there.
Thank you so much. We will hold questions until all proponents have testified. Thank you. Next, we have Jeff King, Workers' Compensation Director for the Kansas Department of Labor. Welcome to committee, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to testify today. We are here on the permanent total bill. This permanent total is reserved for injuries to workers that are the most serious injuries, where basically they're unable to return to any substantial gainful employment. As you know, the cap is $155,000 currently, which is the lowest cap in the country. I think the next lowest is somewhere around $250,000, which is Mississippi. Senator Holland, I can provide copies of a table here from the Workers' Compensation Research Institute that has a list of benefits paid in every state for the permanent total, and I'd be happy to see that your office gets that. The benefits in work for permanent total, if you're at the maximum weekly compensation rate of $765 a week, would pay out in less than 4 years. So for a serious injury, and I think we have some people here to testify today, you might receive benefits for 4 years, maybe up to 6 or 7, depending on your wage, at which time your benefits would stop. There was a question the last time we testified regarding this about Social Security disability and Social Security retirement benefits. And just to remind everybody, there's an offset. Social Security disability takes an offset for work comp benefits, so there's no duplicative recovery there. You're not getting both. And Social Security retirement, work comp gets an offset for Social Security retirement benefits. So there's no time when you're getting both benefits at the same time. There's always some offset for one or the other. So I just wanted to make that clear. As far as when it did change, they're right. It was the last increase in benefits was 2011 when it went from 125 to 155. Before that, it was 24, either 24 or 25 years. I think it was 1987. Before when it went, it was at 100,000, and it finally went to 125. But that took 25 years. So we're now, it would take 25 years to go from 100 to 125. We're now another 12 years in from 125 to, since it went up to 150. So, it hasn't gone up much in 37 years. And as indicated, is still the lowest in the state. And I would just point out, this is a low, even 350 is a low number. In a tight labor market, Mr. Nave pointed out that states around us, Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado, all have a lifetime benefit. Oklahoma has until age 60, until retirement age, or 15 years, whichever is longer. That's the lowest around us. So if we're looking at a tight labor market, if labor even looks at benefits in the workers' compensation system, it's not a good fit for Kansas and labor. So.
Thank you so much. And the information that you referenced that you would send to Senator Holland, if you would send it to Connie, I'll make sure that the entire committee gets that information.
I'll see that we get a copy of the permanent total benefit list for all states to Connie. Yes.
That would be very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we have Anita Miller from Topeka. Anita?
Good morning. I'm Anita Miller, and I worked in the Seaman District as a paraprofessional, and I was injured while lifting one of my special needs children. It caused a herniated disc and some permanent nerve damage. I've had injections and surgery and therapy and all of those treatments, in addition to home treatments such as ice and an H-wave machine, don't actually relieve the pain. Once I've done some work for even just a couple hours, causes the pain to intensify to the point where I'm basically on the couch or in bed. As a result of my injury at the workman's comp, and the judge that was on the appeals board, after 3.5 years, it took to finally get that payout of $155, which is paid over time. And I have had also tons of trouble with trying to get medical care. It took over 9 months for me to get an ablation that I needed that actually did have some benefits to the pain, relieving the pain. And right now I'm looking to try and get an appointment just to refill medication, and it's difficult to get even an appointment. So that side of it is also very, it's a very sad state because in addition to that, the insurance agents or the adjusters are able to talk directly to the doctor. And I will, so they're talking about my treatment without me being involved. And so that's not, I just want to say Kansas deserves a whole lot better than what they are giving to their total disabled workers. They deserve to be paid a dignified wage when they are unable to work anymore. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita. Appreciate it. Committee, next we have Jeff Cooper presenting for Jennifer Young from Wichita. Welcome back, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Appreciate you allowing me to give a few words for Ms. Young. She expresses her regrets that she's unable to attend due to her son's doctor's appointment. She did also ask me to express her thanks to Chairman Erickson for meeting with her after last year's session and discussing this important issue. Ms. Young testified last year. I think she's the witness that Mr. Ney was referring to. She was making about $80,000 a year in her mid-30s and has a serious injury, and she's now unable to work. She received $155,000. She could have made that in a couple of years working, but that's her limit. That's all she gets. This is an egregious law and needs to be changed. As you've heard, Kansas is the lowest in the nation. We would ask that Ms. Young asked me to please request that this bill be passed on behalf of injured workers for the state of Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do appreciate her testimony and knowing that she continues to advocate even though this would not benefit her in any way, so appreciate that. Next we have Keith Mark, who will provide verbal comments for Chris Jacobson. Welcome back.
Thank you. Some of you that were here last year would remember my client sat right here in a wheelchair, and he was unable to make it today because it's quite early. It takes a couple of hours for Mr. Jacobson to get up, to get bathed, to get transferred, to get into his wheelchair, and then to get into a vehicle that would allow him to make it here today. And his testimony is written. I'm not going to read it all verbatim, but I would hope that each of you would take a second to realize that this was a young man making over $1,000 a week. And when you talk about $155,000, that's a kid with a family and a young boy. And how long he would take, I know Senator Peck asked, talking about cost of living, let's just talk about ability to make a living. And he would have made that money well many times over, but if you look in the testimony, he was paid $594 per week which was 2/3 of his average weekly wage. It took him 3.5 years to get him to a point where they said he was at maximum medical improvement. And so he had been paid $111,000 in temporary total disability benefits. And so when it came time to litigate his case, because of that cap, he was awarded an additional $45,000. And so the money that he got while he was off, and then he gets $45,000, and that's for a man that's in a wheelchair. And he couldn't even read his testimony last year because he can't talk. He's had multiple surgeries. He just had his back refused again. And if you read at the end of his testimony, only by the grace of God was I able to get his case over in the state of Missouri. And so he's actually getting a weekly benefit now through the state of Missouri, which puts him far better than had he not had the ability to have jurisdiction in just Kansas. And I'd like to close with this. Last year, if you remember, by the time the hearing was over, Mr. Jacobson was crying. And I'm going to tell you why he was crying, because some testimony was read by Tony Anderson, I believe it was, on behalf of somebody that is opposing this. And I look, I don't see any of those people here today because I don't think anybody has the courage to stand up here and say, I oppose this in face of all these people and what's going on with them. But Mr. Jacobson, when the testimony against this bill was read that said, all this will do is give incentive to injured workers not to work, Chris leaned over to me and he whispers, do they think I don't want to go back to work? And I said, buddy, I pray that the people that are going to make this decision realize that you do. And when you can't, I'm on behalf of Chris Jacobson and all the other severely injured people in the state of Kansas, which isn't many, the truth be known. I've done it 37 years. I've only had a handful. Please, please do the right thing here. You didn't do it last year. I'm asking you to do the right thing this year on behalf of Chris and all the other injured workers in Kansas.
Thank you very much, Keith. Next, we have Jake Miller, Executive Director, Working Kansas Alliance. Welcome back, Jake.
Thank you, Chairwoman Erickson and members of the committee. Thank you for getting this scheduled with us. This is a very important bill, and I'll be brief because I know you do got to be on the floor at 9, and you've heard a lot better testimony from injured workers as well as their attorneys. But I just want to stand and make one promise to you all that I will work with you in keeping amendments off this bill from a perspective of further work comp change. One issue and reasons we always hear that bills like these do not hit the floor is they're worried that we're going to run an amendment for the 6th to the 4th. We're going to run an amendment for choice to the provider, any of those. Those are not on our agenda today. This bill is too important. As you've heard, 3 years is what essentially the statute is saying a person's life is worth. When they're injured at no fault of their own, they can't return to work. They can't make a wage. It's not fair, and we hope it'll change. But I'll be brief since you have to go, and I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last conferee this morning is James Gallagher from Wichita, Kansas. Thank you for being here, James.
Oh, where to begin? I've worked for this company for 17 years. I've worked with a lot of people, a lot of customers, developed a pretty good base friendship with them. My livelihood has gotten basically cut off. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm a little sore. During this time, in 2001, I was doing my job. I picked up a box, a small box, 25 pounds. Next thing you know, I'm about ready to pick myself up off the ground. I still feel that pain today. My wages have gone to nil. I received $737 per week through workman's comp. It's temporary workman's comp, permanent. My wages at that time was $1,800 a week. Right now, all I'm getting is my Social Security. I've got a wife, excuse me, who is disabled. And with me being disabled, it makes it almost impossible for me to take care of her. Our independence is nil. If this goes through or doesn't go through, my income will be cut 60% of what it's been. How am I supposed to live? It's not fair. My hobbies and stuff, they're nil at this time. I have an antique car I've been working on for 20 years. I haven't been able to touch it for the last 2. I may not be able to at all. I'm standing here asking you guys to, give us a break. This $155,000 is, it's not going to put somebody in my condition or even worse condition than me. It's going to last them very darn long. Their livelihood is at a nil. I ask that you please, look this over. Keep us in mind. Hopefully you'll do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, James. Committee questions for the proponents. Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's for Anita. If you want to go to the podium. Can you share with me what this, so when you weren't able to work anymore, what happened to health insurance? Did you have to go to the free market?
Fortunately, my husband works full-time and I get health insurance through him. My injuries are not covered by our health insurance, so I have to battle with work comp each time I need to make an appointment. So on that side of it, it's not included in this bill and it won't affect me in any way, but it's a struggle every time. So that's something that needs to be worked on as well. Okay.
Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is for Jeff Cooper. And I'm going to pick on Jeff only because I think a few years ago he was involved in some negotiations between the labor side and business on I think there was a death benefit that I worked on with you. We got some improvements made to that, to a young man who was killed in a grain elevator. So, sir, my question, I guess just a couple questions. I'm looking at the proponents. I'm not seeing where's the business side on this list? Where's like the chamber, SHRM? Where are they all on this list?
Senator, I'm not sure I can answer that question. We've not had any contact with them. We do have a meeting coming up later today to hopefully discuss this bill with some members of insurance company, respondent attorneys, et cetera. But I'm not sure I can tell you where they're at. We've had no contact.
Can you tell me, Mr. Cooper, where you came up with, or whoever, what was the rationale for coming up with $350,000?
That's an excellent question. Last year, as you recall, we were over here with a bill requesting a change and requesting lifetime benefits at the weekly 2/3 rate, which is what over 90%, all but 4 states in the United States provide to their workers is lifetime benefits for the duration of the condition. So that didn't get very far last year. We thought there were some concerns about how that might affect business. So this year, when we proposed the language for the bill, we thought at least a raise in the cap rate would be better than remaining at 155. If I had my choice, I would like to see benefits paid for the duration of the condition, which all the other states in the nation do except 4 or 5. This change would improve Kansas. We would go from being dead last to number 49. We would jump ahead of Mississippi. So it's not an ideal bill, but it's a place to start, and injured workers deserve, some increase. You have ladies like Jennifer Young who can't work, but they're used to getting, a reasonable salary. That's for every one of these clients of mine that are permanently totally disabled. And like Keith said, there's very few. Keith's done it 37 years. I'm about the same. I can, put them on a couple hands. It's just not a large number, but those workers are the ones that are really unfairly disadvantaged by workers' compensation. I'm like Keith, I've got a client in a wheelchair that's getting paid $600 a week right now, but it's going to end here in about another 9 months, and that individual has no backup, no Social Security, no retirement. I don't know what he's going to do. I wish I had an answer for him.
Senator Holland?
Well, I appreciate that response, but I guess from my own perspective, I wish you'd go back and lobby or start again with the lifetime benefits. I mean, and a little bit of background for the committee, maybe I'm sharing too much here, but, I do a lot of professional services work. Most of my sons do professional services work. One of my sons, though, does manual labor. He likes moving stuff around in boxes in his job, okay? And it literally scares the hell out of me because he just got married, he's young, and I'm thinking, what happens if he slips and injures his spine, okay, where he's incapacitated, and then he is literally, messed up the rest of his life, both physically and financially, given the current state of affairs we have here in the state of Kansas. And, I guess employers sometimes wonder why people don't want to work. And it's like, why would you subject yourself to that financial risk, okay, for $18 an hour, whatever the hell it is, okay, when you're going to be basically financially, non-contributory the rest of your life? And so I would just encourage the employee side of this to let's start high, okay? Because I want to do this right, and it breaks everybody on the committee's heart here, I'm sure, to see folks come up here and deal with the system as it is. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I do believe from James' testimony, I don't know that workers understand that if they get injured, that they're looking at $155,000 until it happens to them. And I believe in his testimony, he goes, I was shocked. I don't know that employees know that that's the risk they're taking, Senator, and that's a little alarming as well. So other questions? Senator Peck, then Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. King, I have a question for you because of something that you put in your testimony. I may be the only one in the room that doesn't know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask. You said that the current maximum weekly compensation is $765. Is that $765 based off of some formula, or is that statutory?
It's statutory. The state's average weekly wage is computed every year. You apply 75% of that, and that becomes the maximum rate that you can get for workers' compensation benefit.
So that amount generally would go up but could go down? Am I hearing that?
I guess if the state's average weekly wage goes down, yes, it could. I don't recall in my 43 years that it ever going down, but it's possible, yes.
So as it goes up, it reduces the amount of time before a person reaches the 155.
Correct. It doesn't help the cap. It just reduces, instead of, if it goes up to to 800 in the next couple of years, it just reduces. You only get paid for three and a half years instead of 4. Yeah, the time period that you get paid goes down. Right. That's correct.
Thank you, Mr.
And I was going to tell you, sir, of KSA 44 510F, it talks about the caps, and it does say temporary, total, permanent, partial. All those are included in the cap for perm total. So it's not, as somebody else mentioned, it's not temporary total plus 155. If you get temporary total benefits and you finally reach maximum medical improvement where you are either permanent partial or permanent total, that temporary total benefits you received apply to the cap. So it is 155 total.
Thank you, Mr. King. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First one is for you, Jeff King. Can you tell me about federal disability and how that works? Social Security, does it change the age?
I can't tell you too much. All I can tell you, Social Security disability gets a benefit gets an offset for work comp benefits. So usually Social Security benefits are less than the work comp benefits, and especially if you have some workers that haven't worked for very long. I mean, they haven't reached their maximum earning capacity, and of course, Social Security benefits increase the longer you work and the more you make, you get a higher benefit. So, but Social Security disability takes an offset. So once you run out 4 years, you run out of work comp benefits, and then maybe you're getting the $765 a week or whatever the paraprofessional here was getting, and then. If you have to lose those work comp benefits, then you're on Social Security disability, and those benefits are usually less, almost always. And then if you get to retirement age, or you're receiving Social Security retirement benefits, there's a provision in KSA 44501 where work comp gets an offset for Social Security retirement benefits. So you never get both.
Thank you. Okay, I have a follow-up question for the other Jeff. So I had a similar question on how $350,000 was chosen, simply because, you hear these stories, and I like that we're bumping it up, but it still feels like we're not in the game. So another question for you then, how is it chosen? And then health insurance, what does that normally look like if you don't have a spouse? Because if you have health insurance through your employer, what happens when a situation happens and you don't have that health insurance anymore?
Well, let me start with the last question on health insurance. A lot of employees do have health insurance through their employment, and then obviously when they are no longer able to work, then they lose their health insurance. They would have medical care related to the injury through workers' compensation, but any other medical care would be on their own to get some kind of coverage. Unfortunately, if you don't have any money, it's very difficult to buy any kind of coverage. So I think most of those individuals probably end up on Medicare, so you and I as taxpayers are probably ending up ultimately paying for that through Medicare. Medicare, of course, doesn't want to pay for anything that's work-related, so we have issues on that as well. In terms of how we come up with a cap, Senator Peck, I think, was asking some questions about, inflation, et cetera. I think those are some rough numbers we come up with to look at inflation and other factors. And kind of what should that 155 look like now? So I think we did take that into consideration. That probably wasn't the only factor, but we felt like at least an increase would be beneficial. Obviously, we would like to have lifetime benefits for an individual that is so disabled that they can't work any substantial gainful employment. That would be preferable. Alternatively, you could do the cap like we've suggested here and tie it to an index similar to the temporary total statute. That would be another way to, at least make sure at least a minimum amount of money is paid to injured workers. So that's kind of how we come up. We thought at least an increase in the cap would be better than nothing. That's kind of what we come up with. There is a bill from last year that has the language. I'm sure that's available. I don't have it with me, but it does make benefits payable for lifetime. And I think it's really important to remember, too, when you're talking about benefits for lifetime, it's not the wage that they were earning at the time of the injury. At most, they get 2/3 of that. And Senator Holland made a comment that really kind of sunk in with me. I've got a daughter that's a nurse, and she has to do some heavy physical stuff, and I seriously worry about her, so I understand your concern, Senator. 94% of Kansans are covered by work comp. You're right, Senator. Most, if not all, employees have no idea what this pays. And Keith and the other attorneys here can attest. I mean, I'm sure they would agree with me that, as an attorney, that's one of the worst things I have to do is explain to them, hey, you can't work the rest of your life, but you're only going to get 155, and there's nothing I can do about it. That's frustrating for me, and it's extremely difficult to tell a client that.
Senator Schallenberger.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't have a question yet. I do feel like, with all respect, that we're kind of being used here at the committee, because apparently later today there's a meeting between the sides, and we're having a hearing today, and time is running out. Not only is it running out for the meeting, but it's running out for the session. And maybe, and this may be out of order, but I would like to kind of send a signal to both sides that we're looking at this issue. And I know you don't want to work the bill today, but I would like the record to show that I'm offering an amendment to this bill that takes the 350 out and makes it a lifetime. No one seconds it, then it'll go nowhere.
We are not going to work this bill, and yet, for the very reason, Senator, that you have claimed, we have allowed the stakeholders, because I do agree that I think it's much better if the stakeholders bring a solution, a compromise to the legislature, rather than us dictating a solution. My frustration, and I think the frustration from what I'm hearing from some members of the committee, is the timing. We don't want to continue to drag this out. And so I agree, we need to send a message loud and clear. Bring us a solution, or we will dictate a solution to this issue. So I agree with your sentiment, Senator, and I do believe that that is where it stands. I appreciate Jeff saying they are meeting today. I have been asked to be kept informed of the progress of that, because time is running out, and whether the stakeholders bring us something or the legislature acts, that's kind of the tipping point that we are at this point.
And if I may just continue.
Senator Schallenberger.
This isn't even conferenceable at this point in time, and it's a Senate bill. So I'm just saying, I hope that this issue is big enough compared to some of the stuff we've been doing that I would hope that this would get taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I really appreciate Senator Schallenberger's comments. I have been in some informal communications with both sides of this issue, and my understanding is, I think the current timeline, Madam Chair, is I don't think they're planning on doing anything until next session. I would remind everybody that if we wanted to work this bill, we could pull it out of committee ourselves with a motion on the floor, if we wanted to do the lifetime, and we could just get out of committee and just get it going. So anyway, but I appreciate Senator Schallenberger's frustration, and I agree it's past time, And I would just tend to go for the lifetime. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might have missed something, but so if the stakeholders get together today, are we going to have another committee meeting to work the bill this year?
Remains to be seen. The president can give permission to meet. That will remain to be seen. Any other questions? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Since we're having this discussion, I would ask, and I apologize, sir, I don't remember your name, but the last gentleman that was at the microphone who indicated that a lifetime benefit would be preferable over a cap such as we have. If we do that, the maximum weekly would be reduced. Is that correct?
I believe that's for Mr. Cooper, I believe.
The maximum weekly benefit is set in other parts of the statute, and it's always 2/3 of that individual's pay, or whichever is lesser, 2/3 or the state maximum. So obviously you have a lower wage earning individual making $600 a week, the rate would be paid at $400 per week, 2/3 of their wages. But if you have someone making $80,000 a year, they're going to be capped at that maximum TTD rate, which right now is $765. So 2/3 is the most they can ever get, and if they're a higher wage earner, it's going to be the state maximum, which frequently is quite a bit lower than 2/3 of their wage for a high wage person. Does that answer your question, Senator?
Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It does. You will not be a part of the discussion when the committee works the bill. So I'm going to ask now, if you were to have the choice, and this, I realize you're speaking on your own behalf or possibly a client, if you were to have the choice of a cap with remaining at the 2/3 with the 765 max, or changing the maximum weekly to a lower amount, because most retirement plans, annuities, etc., if you choose a fixed period, you do have a cap, but if you make a lifetime, it's going to be a reduced amount. Which would you choose, a higher cap or a lifetime at a lower amount, lower weekly amount?
I think there are some states that have a lower amount for permanent total. If it was a lifetime benefit and, I don't know what the amount is, but if it's somewhat reasonable considering their ability to provide for their family, et cetera, I think a lifetime benefit, even if it was at a lower amount, would be preferable.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for being here on this short notice so early in the morning. It is appreciated. And committee, while I have the chance, I do want to take time to thank our staff, Charles, Eric, Dusty for sitting in today on technical, especially Connie, my amazing committee assistant, who I couldn't do anything without her. I also want to thank Vice Chair Dietrich for all of her hard work and stepping in and doing whatever's been asked of her, and the committee members for your hard work. And I just want to tell the proponents today, I don't think it's a state slogan we want that we went from 50th to 49. Not acceptable. So, I believe Senator Tyson is joining us online. Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've had my hand up for quite some time, and I just want to tell you and the conferees, thank you so much for having this hearing. Every time we touch on the subject, it is compelling that we act on it. And I know, Madam Chairman, that you are going to do everything, as will the committee members, to help support these people. So thank you again, Madam Chairman.
Thank you all. And with that, we are adjourned.